remember your first trip to the beach? I want you to really think about it. Feel the sand under your toes, the sunshine on your face, the symphony of happy voices cackling with delight. How about this? Do you remember, speaking of cackling with delight, inventing sports when you were a kid, a game of chaos ball, and chasing that ball around until it got so dark that you could no longer see what you were chasing? Speaking of happy dark spaces, how about this one? Do you remember going to a darkened theater for the first time and becoming so caught up in the movie that you completely lost track of time? These were your first experiences with the fun economy, the tourism industry, plus the sports industry, plus the entertainment industry. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably feel a twinge of guilt for overindulging sometimes in the fun economy. But I'm here to let you off the hook. And I'm here to tell you about what might be the most underappreciated trend of our time. The story of the fun economy has to start in 2019. In 2019, the most amazing thing happened. For the first time in human history, 10% of planet Earth's economy was tourism. Think about that. 1 in 10 dollars, pesos, yen, euros was spent on going from one part of the Earth to another part of the Earth. That's an amazing development, because for the vast majority of human history, we didn't go anywhere. Think about our ancestors' lives. They were born on one piece of the Earth. They grew up on that piece of the Earth. They probably grew up to toil and till that Earth. And then ultimately they died on that same piece of Earth. And then they were buried underneath that Earth and returned to the Earth. Today, tourism is 10% of the planet's economy. And when that's the case, we can no longer dismiss cities like Las Vegas as superfluous and fun, but not important. Not when it's 10% of the world's economy. Well, when you add sports and you add entertainment, and you look at the intertwining of sports and tourism and entertainment, we actually get to 14% of the world's economy. Look at that pie chart. 14% of planet Earth's economy today is the fun economy, while 86% is everything else. Let me give you some proportion for that everything else. 14% means that the fun economy is 9 times the size of the global pharmaceutical industry. It's 7 times the size of the global apparel industry. It's 5 times the size of the global automobile industry, and it's 3 times the size of the global agriculture industry. At this stage, the future of the economy is headed towards fun. And when we think about where we're headed, I wonder whether you believe that those numbers are going up or whether they're going down. Maybe we've seen the heyday. Well, let me give you a subtle hint. I believe that those numbers are going up. And I believe they're going up for another beautiful reason that nobody's talking about. We might call it the rise of a global middle class. And in a world where we're all doom scrolling, in a world where we're inundated with so much bad news, this is an undeniably happy news item for those of us who live here on planet Earth. Of the 8 billion of us who live here, we just reached a tipping point where for the first time in human history, half of us are in the middle class or higher. Think about that. For the vast majority of human history, the vast majority of our ancestors were really, really struggling and really, really poor. The fact that we've seen so many folks in countries like China and India, but also in countries like Mexico and Kenya, go from poverty up into the middle class is an undeniably happy thing. Good for us, planet Earth. Did you know at the end of this decade, we'll see for the first time 2/3 of planet Earth in this roaring 20s decade reach the middle class? And what's the first thing that you start to buy after you escape the world of poverty, where you're buying necessities like toothpaste and diapers, and you rise up into the middle class? You know what you start to buy? You start to buy fun. You start to buy trips. You start to go to ball games. You start to attend concerts. And this is an undeniably good thing. But I wonder whether it's all good. After all, as I said, we probably all have levels of guilt associated with some of our fun memories. And after all, cocaine is fun, but nobody would advocate, of course, for global mass consumption of cocaine as a policy. So how can we know if all of this fun is good? Well, I think we can turn now to what is 25 years of research on happiness. 25 years ago, the field of psychology said, we're going to start to study not just the people who are struggling, but we're going to go to the other end of the bell curve to study the people who are flourishing, to study the people who are having fun. And maybe, just maybe, we can learn some things about the people who are struggling, and we can learn some things about humanity as a whole. And one of the fascinating and consistent findings over that 25-year period has to do with this. Did your grandmother ever tell you this? Money can't buy happiness. Well, it turns out she was only partly right. Money can't buy happiness if you buy stuff. If you buy stuff, it's a little bit like buying a whole big bag of sugary candy and then wolfing it down on your drive home. You're gonna feel a sugar high, right? But then what's gonna happen? You're gonna end up at a sugar low, and you're gonna end up less happy than you were at your baseline. That's what happens, according to the research, when you buy fancy watches or fancy cars. But here's where your grandmother was wrong. Money can buy happiness when you buy fun experiences. Think about that trip to the beach. If you buy a fun experience, here's what the research suggests. Before you even have the experience, before you even go on the trip, you actually see an increase in happiness. Then, of course, you go on the trip, and then you see a huge spike in happiness because you're embedded in the thing. You are experiencing the full throttle jet engines of the fun economy. And then the most miraculous thing happens. You actually continue to see an increase in happiness after you go home, after the experience, because you relive the experience as memory. So in closing, if you ever come across one of those people who signals that he's been really successful in life, he's made lots and lots of money selling, I don't know, fancy watches or fancy cars, here's what you can say. Yeah, way to go. You're signaling to me that you make lots of money selling stuff. But here's what I know. I saw a lecture on this. I know the science. And it turns out you're contributing to gross world sadness. By contrast, if you work in the fun economy, or even if you're someone who just indulges in it, be really, really happy. Because if you want to be happy, buy fun experiences. And if you want to make the world happy, create fun experiences. Because the fun economy, in the end, it's not just good for the economy. The fun economy, when it's done right, it is good for you. Thank you.